Hey, this is Ishan, and you're listening to Heavy Demons.
So, dear Ishan, in Telemark we can find a cover of Lenny Kravitz's Rock and Roll is Dead. Do you actually agree with such statement? Is the rock and roll actually dead?
No, I wouldn't say so, but I think the statement was very valid.
Okay.
And it kind of illustrates that's part of the beyond the song being an amazing rock song, you know, and kind of like an aesthetic inspiration for the sound I wanted for the Telemark EP. It kind of connected well, I think, with that kind of old school black metal attitude, where it's not about commercial forces or money or all the superficial stuff. It's about the core music, and I think by all the intent, that is kind of the message of Rock and Roll is Dead. When it dies when you go from the kind of core artistic motivation that made you play this kind of music in the start, to start with, and if it's overshadowed by all the superficial aspects that might come with it if it becomes successful. So I think it's just grinding a similar kind of core, feeling and attitude that I guess I felt at home with.
And like the first time that in my life that I read the word Telemark was in the credits of In the Night Side Eclipse in the booklet. How much black metal aesthetics shall we find in Telemark the EP?
No, I think the reason how this whole project shaped, it's kind of pulling together a lot of different facets, if you will. So this is again a conceptual idea. I mean, I work with very particular concepts for every kind of recording or release. Most of the time that is albums, but this time it's slightly different. But I work these out also very much in collaboration with Heidi, my wife and creative partner. So she wanted to challenge me to do a more raw form, only black metal kind of release, and she also suggested I do it in Norwegian, and then it was kind of going, and when the musical aesthetics, I wanted to write the music for typical drums, bass, two guitars, screaming vocals band, and a brass section, however, but still to write the whole EP for that kind of ensemble. And like very bare bones, like how I started out, and then with kind of deciding on only black metal vocals, it was very back to my musical roots, if you will. And when that was settled, it made sense to kind of go back to my kind of geographical roots and also my cultural roots. So to kind of combine all these elements that more or less stuck together, but kind of different aspects of the basic idea. So it just made a lot of sense to kind of combine all these elements into Telemark, which, as you say, this has been kind of a thing also from the early Emperor stuff that we feel very much at home here, and I think every Emperor show we do is like introduced like from Telemark Norway.
Yeah. And you will be releasing a second EP. Yeah, and are you working on the follow-up of Amr as well?
Not at the same time. No, I wanted to. This is some of the motivation for me to doing these two EPs, in a series, and the first one comes out in mid-February, and the second one, about 6 months after that, I guess. The second EP will be kind of exploring the opposite side of the first EP. So I mean, I guess all my albums are slightly, hopefully, a variety of expressions, but still, I always want my albums to be very cohesive. I kind of work on the subconscious ideal of an album that is very balanced and kind of feels like the songs form a larger whole, like classical Iron Maiden albums did. So not just a collection of songs that happened to be written in that period. It needs to be some common denominator for all of them, and that would kind of limit how far you could go. So like the title track for the Telemark EP would which kind of have a folkish element to the riffs, that is very inspired by the Harding fiddle playing from this area. I don't think I would find a place for those kind of tonal colors in a solo album. So this made it possible for me to explore, even outside of what I have been doing, and I hope in many ways I can do the same thing with the second EP. And as I said, some of the motivation for doing this is that I've been releasing, I think on average I've been releasing a full-length album every second year since I was 16, and now I'm 44. So it was kind of a good opportunity and a good time after 7 solo albums very regularly to do something else. And also I've been playing more live shows, and in 2018 I did my first tour, European tour, and I wanted these. I want to extend the release of the EPs also with live shows, building on the same aesthetics. So I will do shows, following the first EP with extreme shows where I pick a set list and do a kind of a performance based on the aesthetics of this EP, and hopefully I can, following the second EP, I will do a totally different set list and a totally different show that leans on the aesthetics of that EP, so that it's more than just. I think it was a bit. I think my record company was slightly concerned because most people in this style of music, they relate to EPs as like leftovers.
Okay.
That are dropped before the second round of touring. So this is something else. But I wanted it to be that the recordings of these new songs would be part of a bigger project where I was actually thinking the extension into the live area. And this again was inspired by or I guess was influenced by how music is perceived now, that the release of an album is not really that big a deal. People relate to music in shorter formats in some way, and the kind of important more exclusive aspect of it is really back to the live performance. So it kind of made sense to try and some way to bind it together.
You will be presenting the EP live at the Inferno Festival, and then
yes,
will the fans be able to see you on a European tour as IHSAHN? I mean, because we know that with Emperor, for instance, we are looking forward to have you here in Italy next July.
Yeah, no, we're discussing back and forth for another European tour, but that would be probably much later later this year. As for the first part, I think the Telemark shows will predominantly be, starting out premiering that at Inferno and hopefully doing, festivals leading up and into the summer with that side of things, and then maybe we'll get to follow up with a tour, after the second release. It's still early days, so we'll see what happens. That's the intention, anyways.
Yeah. Is there something you miss and something you don't miss from the early days with Emperor?
I don't think there's anything I miss.
Okay,
not at all.
You live in the present days.
Oh yes, I mean, I still kind of get to do. The reason, what was important back then, of course, is that I got to spend all my, also my professional time. My passion for music became my work.
Yeah.
And Emperor has been so important in leading up to me being able to do this for my whole grown-up life. And but I still get to explore. I still get to challenge myself and release, record and create music and release it. And I get to play shows all over the world, both with Emperor and with IHSAHN. So there's really nothing, I don't miss being super broke and being, discontent and having really hard touring conditions and things being very chaotic. I'm very, very pleased where I'm at in my life. So no, not really, nothing.
And only if you've seen the movie, which are your impressions about the Lords of Chaos movie?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
I haven't read the book. I haven't.
Yeah.
I'm really not. I guess it's kind of counterintuitive given the EP I'm now to present, but on a general whole, I'm really not that nostalgic.
And I mean, what kind of music do you like to listen to when you're not busy with your music?
In general, I love great music, and I'm not big a fan of bad music.
Okay.
That's about as specific as it gets. No, because I listen to basically anything that I can find, and I listen to everything from more even commercial pop releases to very avant-garde. It could be. I've listened to a lot of jazz lately. The soundtrack to the Joker movie and Chernobyl, and old soundtracks. I've been listening to a lot of James Bond soundtracks, like these big band things. I always come back to listening to a lot of old Scott Walker. So it's a crazy mix on my playlist mostly.
But it's a syncretic way of loving music. I mean.
Yeah, but also I think I guess unfortunately there's very small portions of metal, because it's what I do. It's not that I'm bored of it, but I think I get into it's probably like a chef trying to come up with new recipes from eating and preparing the same food over and over again. Sometimes you need that those other influences and where, especially in musical genres and ways of creating music that I have no experience with, where I'm surprised and I discover kind of musical elements, whether there are sounds or kind of chord combinations or clusters of sound that inspires me, and I feel I might implement that into my own palette or repertoire or what have you.
Have you ever thought of actually recording a soundtrack to a movie?
It sounds very. I'm very interested in soundtracks, and of course, I love Ennio Morricone. He's Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, but I've seen my wife do it because she's been writing soundtrack for a movie, and it is something that at one point I would love to have the opportunity to do, but at the same time I think it is really challenging because I've always written music that is very much, where the music kind of and the vocals take very center stage.
Yeah.
Whereas as great, a movie soundtrack will have to kind of be adapted to someone else's vision.
Yeah.
I've had a very egocentric, path.
Yeah,
being able to create just from my own perspective and all that. So it would definitely be a challenge, but maybe it would be probably healthy for me. So a very intriguing thought. But then again, I have the greatest respect for those who really have that as a profession, and I would like to enter into something like that with great care, because it's not something that I would take, lightly upon, as I never enter into projects too lightly.
Yeah.
I take music far too serious.
Which final message and greeting would you send out to the Italian fans of IHSAHN and Emperor waiting for you in the castle near Verona on July the 5th?
Well, just thank you for all the support over the years, and personally, and I'm sure also I speak for the rest of the Emperor band and crew, that we really look forward to visiting Verona and to play there. I think that will be hopefully a great experience for both for us and for the audience. So I hope to see everybody there.